Welcome to NFL Chaos with Jeremy. My name is Jeremy, and I bring the chaos. Well, today's State of Jets Nation is one of rumors and opinions and excitement. And it's important that we don't let the rumors and the opinions get in the way of excitement. There's a lot of people fighting and yelling and screaming at each other, specifically on Twitter and Facebook. Not as much in the YouTube world, and Twitter a little bit better than Facebook, but hasn't it always been that way? Why would we ruin this time for the New York Jets? Now, I know some people are cynical. It's been a long time since we made the playoffs, but I think the only way to really enjoy being a fan of a team is to hold on to some kind of hope and some kind of belief that things are going to turn around and get better. Now, I personally think, and I've said this before, and we went through it before, that there are many, many reasons why we should believe that things are going to get better. One is that the amount of wins we've had the last 2 years aside, look at the moves that Joe Douglas has made since he's become the general manager. We've said that a million times. So many people that want to be negative talk about the 2020 draft class. They talk as if Becton is a bust because somebody rolled out his leg. They talk as if Bryce Hall doesn't exist. They tend to focus on the negative. They also tend to ignore that we're not really sure or know how much power or authority Joe Douglas had in that draft. We just don't know. Also, some of the picks are not completely known yet. Like, for example, he picked Mims before he knew who the future coach was going to be and what the system was going to be. So if it's true that Mims is simply not a system fit and ends up succeeding somewhere else, based on when that choice and decision and that selection was made, it might not be a bad pick. It may have just been what eventually was a bad pick for us. Also, Denzel Mims might come into camp and rock it and be a good contributor. We don't know. But I'll tell you this. Nobody complained about the pick when we made it. And there were plenty of fans from many other cities, many other teams that wanted Mims as well. And there were a lot of teams that would have made the pick after we made the pick at some point in either the later second rounds or early third round. We'll never know for sure exactly when he would have went if we hadn't picked him. But it wasn't like we made a stretch or a reach. It's not like we took somebody that nobody else had heard of and made our own judgments. He wasn't coming out of left field. There was thought that he could go in the late first round. So let's get off this train of Joe Douglas failed us in the 2020 draft. That's still yet to be determined. And then let's look at the 2021 draft. The 2021 draft featured a pick in Zack Wilson where I think there was a poll that suggested about 70 to 80% of the GMs, if in need of a quarterback with that second pick, would have went with Zack Wilson. I think the majority, the fans were kind of split, but I kind of sensed there was a majority of fans that wanted Zack Wilson in that spot. I think it's who the San Francisco 49ers would have taken if we traded with them and they got into that number 2 slot. So again, Joe Douglas wasn't the only person in the world that thought Zack Wilson is a good pick with number 2. And again, we don't know 100%. It's going to be a long time, possibly, before we really know if it was the best possible pick in that spot. You cannot determine that from a rookie season. You just can't. It's just that simple. There's too many unknowns. There's too many variables. If you look at the first 8 games of this season, or Zach's first 6 games specifically, and look at the offensive line, if you looked at the number of drop passes, we've said this a million times, it's nothing new. There's just no way to know. What we have, if you want to be positive and hopeful as a fan, is we have the last segment of the season after Zach came back from the injury. We have evidence that he learns from his mistakes and he adjusts. Because with a banged up offensive line, with our starting receivers all on the bench, not only did he beat Jacksonville, he pretty much beat Tampa Bay for all intents and purposes. I mean, we came within, just a miscommunication in the red zone and a failure to play defense at the end of the game from winning that game and beating Tampa Bay with how many were, what, did we even have our 1, 2, or 3 receiver? I think Corey Davis was out. Elijah Moore was out. Maybe Keenan Cole was there. We had guys that weren't even on the website's roster in that game. Tyreek Black, I think, was one of them. DC Montgomery. Our offensive line was shredded, torn apart. We had nobody. I mean, I think we had GVR had to play again and be back in there. Dan Feeney was in there. And yet we went toe-to-toe with the 2021 champions. We went toe-to-toe with Tampa. Well, I should say the 2020 champions, right? Because even though it's in February, it counts as the year before. I always mess that up. Anyway, we went toe-to-toe with them. We could have easily won that game. Zack Wilson played well enough in that game. He showed flashes throughout the season. Great flashes, super exciting flashes of just amazing passes, amazing off-script plays, and struggled with accuracy too. He did. But he didn't struggle with accuracy to the point where he deserves to have that 55% or whatever it is completion percentage, because the truth is he would have been over 60% if we didn't lead the league in drops. He could have been higher if we would have given him any help with like making spectacular catches, which we didn't see a lot of. Which you see a lot of receivers on different teams make spectacular catches to help their quarterback. How many drives would that kept alive, and more opportunities for Zack to keep and develop a rhythm to complete passes? Against the Eagles in the first half, we saw what happened when you let him develop a rhythm. He led and managed 3 successive touchdown drives, and he had a rhythm, and he was accurate, and it was wonderful to watch. Then in the second half, our defense was unable to keep the Eagles off the field, which broke the rhythm of our offense. And obviously the Eagles made adjustments that made it harder for Zack. Now, he didn't make mistakes or start throwing tons of interceptions or anything. The whole offense was put out of sync. Now, do I expect Zack Wilson to mature and overcome challenges like that in the future? Yes. But in this case, we're talking about a rookie quarterback. So to expect perfection is absolutely insane. Now, moving forward and moving ahead, we've shift our focus to the upcoming draft. Here we are with a quarterback who showed great flashes last year. Here we are with young guys who came in last year's draft, like AVT, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter II, Eccles, who is going to be fighting for a starting position, but at the worst will be a nice depth piece for our secondary. These guys are all going to take steps forward, or typically do. In the NFL, rookies don't come into the NFL and start their career in their primes. There typically seems to be big jumps years 2 and year 3 as they cruise into their prime years 4, 5, and beyond. So we have a lot to look forward to. And now we come into this draft with more draft capital than probably any team in the NFL. We come in with 5 picks in the top 69 picks of the draft. We have 2 top 10 picks. You know all this. And there's even better things going on that people aren't talking about that actually, if we make the right decisions, are going to help us out long term. Starting with the number 4 pick, the slashing and the bashing of Kayvon Thibodeaux has been outrageously just blown out of proportion. Okay. First of all, I love the take that people love to hear takes and just repeat them. Thibodeaux doesn't have a motor. He takes plays off. Okay. Let's address that. Okay. So what is taking a play off? What does that mean? He takes a play off. If you're the one of the people saying he takes a play off, please come on to my show. We'll play any Oregon game you want to play, or any Oregon game. We'll find it on YouTube. We'll play every defensive snap. And you tell me where you saw evidence that he takes plays off, and you prove to me that it wasn't something you heard. Because I watched every week, because I'm on the West Coast, and we get to watch those games. The Pac-10 games are on TV out here. How nice for us. We get to see these guys. And one thing I never saw was Thibodeaux take a play off. Neither has my dog. You hear? He gets very emotional about this. Just because he doesn't get a pressure or a sack on a play doesn't mean he took the play off. There's no such thing as a player who gets a pressure or a sack on every play. How do you judge that he took the play off? Where's the film? Where's the film? I never see it. I see people saying it, but I never see the film. Not once. Not once has someone shown me film. And if you want to go into the comment section and put a link that shows film of him taking a play off, please do. I would love to see it. Because when I watched the game, he was an animal. He played hard every play. You watched him like just fight and fight and fight. And the worst games he had are the games where he didn't put up any stats. Game plans were designed for him. Okay, the entire game plan to avoid him, running the opposite way, having a tight end help the offensive lineman and double team him to run around him. Plays that were designed to take him out of the play. I don't want to hear this nonsense. Just get on him early and he gives up on plays. Who is this coach? You notice how it's always like a Pac-10 coach. Let me tell you something about coaching staffs. Okay. You know how many guys or people are on a college team's coaching staff? You know how many interns there are, people that you could call coaches that are just former players, some 23-year-old who joined the team as a coach? You know how many does it take for one of those, for all the Pac-10 teams, a nothing intern or some assistant to assistant who didn't like this kid, doesn't like the rivalry between the teams, to go to the press and say something like, "Oh, we didn't care about him. He gives up on plays if you just hold him. If you just hold him in the beginning, if you stop him and get hands on him, he gives up." Where is this on the tape? Show me this on the tape. Name the person who said it. Let's put that person under the microscope so they can sit there and give us examples of this happening. But you know what? Like I said and alluded to coming into this, starting this piece of the discussion, this is a good thing for the Jets. Let him drop to 4, please, and run to the podium and grab him. Run to the podium and grab him. We have talked ourselves out of an edge rusher forever. And no, I don't want Walker, because in my opinion, and I heard this from somewhere, I didn't decide this on my own, so don't think I'm a thief. It was said somewhere on one of the shows, one that I was on even maybe, someone said it so eloquently and so correctly that Walker might be a great defensive lineman, but made for a 3-4, the outside guy on a 3-4 defense. If I watch the tapes, I don't see edge. I see really good penetrating defensive lineman, great player, but is that a fit? Remember how we care about fit now? That you have to fit a scheme? Well, he has to fit our scheme. Is that what he's meant to do? Is he meant to be an edge that just rushes the quarterback every play? Or is he meant to be a 3-4, take up your space, stuff the run, and make it easy for outside linebackers to do their job and rush the quarterback? Right? And I say that as an opinion. I say that as what sounded like pretty good stuff when you watch the tape, when you watch Georgia, when you watch those games. It seems like reasonable thinking. We need an edge, though. We play a 4-3. We need someone that puts their hands in the dirt and chases the quarterback every play. We need the most explosive player with the most potential to be that next superstar, that next guy that gets 15 plus sacks a year. Boy, do we miss and need that. Do not talk yourself out of Thibodeau. Let's not let him go to the Giants. Can you imagine him on the Giants? Their next guy, after all those guys they've had over the years, and they get the guy. And again, they're looking at a guy getting multiple sacks, and we're sitting there watching everybody claiming that they wanted us to take Thibodeau, forgetting that we have evidence on Twitter that you didn't, that you believe nonsense that he takes plays off. Prove it to me, because I watched the games and I didn't see it. And I'm not claiming to be an expert film analyst, but I've watched football for over 40 years and I didn't see any evidence of him taking a play off. I see things. I saw GVR get thrown like a rag doll into our left tackle. I saw that. I noticed that. I'm able to see and use these eyes to see what's happening in a game. I don't see Thibodeau just letting up on plays. I mean, if he got one sack a game, right? That's a lot of plays where he didn't get a sack, right? Does that mean you take plays off? Every great player in the NFL. What if you had an NFL football player who averaged one sack per game his entire career for 10 years? You have the greatest edge rusher to ever live. Maybe he doesn't set the single season record. He only gets 17 a year. Only 17 sacks a year. Only. But if he does it for 10 years, he's the greatest that ever was. And guess what that means? If you have 35 to 50 snaps or 35 passing plays on average against you, I don't know what the number is. That means on 34 of them, you didn't get the sack. And even if you got 3 pressures in a game, which I think is a lot, right? If you got 3 pressures every game, I think that would be a lot. I think I'm doing the math. Yeah, it sounds like a ton, like a ridiculous amount. That's still 4 plays out of 35. Does that mean you took the other 31 plays off, the other 31 passing plays? Or does that mean that offensive linemen in the NFL are pretty good? And it's not easy to consistently get around them. And sometimes you get blocked. Anyway, let's move on to pick number 10. And another thing that might help us, is this crazy narrative that we need a guy, a wide receiver, if we go wide receiver, that's going to play right away. We have to have a wide receiver that plays right away. Really? Do we? Are we really the team that needs the wide receiver to play game one? Are we really in that position? Is there a Super Bowl on the line? Were we the number 1 seeded team last year, like Tennessee? Are we going in with a closing window that we have to win a Super Bowl now? So we need a guy to come in and play and be amazing right now? I don't think so. Does that mean I don't want Zach to have help? No. I'm the first one that says we got to go out there and sign another veteran guy. I don't care if it's Keelan Cole. It's a familiar guy, good in the locker room. Would love it if it was somebody better. I don't listen to rumors, but if by some miracle A.J. Brown was to walk into our locker room or DK Metcalf was to walk into our locker room, then that's fine. Maybe we don't even think about wide receiver at 10, and it's no longer our problem. But if we go into that draft without, by the way, I'm not going to say without a WR1 receiver, because I believe we have our WR1 receiver. It's just that it takes a receiver a few years, especially in the system, to become and establish himself as a one. So even this year, I believe Elijah Moore will take a giant step forward, but he might not put up wide receiver 1 numbers right off the bat, or he might. But anyway, we need another elite receiver, another weapon, and a receiver who can scare people, right? And myself included, one of the things we never talked about in the draft and never discussed is a guy named Jameson Williams. Why? Because Jameson Williams tore his ACL. But now, and I will admit, I watched Chris Sims' ranking of wide receivers, and it made me not fall in love with Jameson Williams. It made me go back and watch the tape. And it made me do some thinking. If I told you, and I'm not saying that this is the truth with Jameson Williams, but if I told Kansas City and showed them the future for Tyreek Hill and said, but he's not going to play the first 6 weeks of his first season after you draft him, right? So you have a guy that guaranteed. I'm saying, and I know that's a hypothetical because it's not guaranteed. I'm just making a point. If I told you were going to have the next Tyreek Hill, but he wasn't going to play the first 6 games of the season, but you're going to have him the rest of his career, or at least the next 4 or 5 years on the cheap, would you not take him because of those 4 to 6 games? When you're a team that won 4 games the year before and has virtually no chance to become to be a Super Bowl team, a team that's clearly rebuilding. Are you going to tell me you're going to say no to that? Jameson Williams is not guaranteed to be the next Tyreek Hill, but we seem to want that type of player. We were willing to give up a tremendous amount of capital to get that type of player. Jameson Williams has the best chance to become that player. Jameson Williams is by far the most likely to be that kind of player. He is faster than every other player. He is more explosive than every other player. He is a much better route runner than any other player in this class. And I don't know what to tell you if you don't believe that. But if you haven't watched the tape, you have no right to be in the discussion. I'm sorry, you just don't. You can't not watch the tape and then make an argument if you're not watching. And I'm not an all 22 guy spending hours and hours. I don't think it takes that much. I'm a guy who looks up on YouTube and says every play from this game. And it's fun with Alabama and Georgia and those teams because you can watch every play on both sides. You don't even have to fast forward because there's always multiple players on both sides that you want to watch. But I pick particular players to look at, and then I compare them. And you could see if you know what route running means. I mean, it's not that complicated. Part of it is about making cuts and being able to accelerate off of those cuts, right? To do them crisp. Watch the defender when they make those little jukes, when they make those little cuts. Does it fool them? Does it not fool them? How real does it look? But after they fake a cut and go deep, how fast can they reaccelerate? Because if they can't make that fake to the inside and then shoot deep cleanly and with explosive speed, they're not going to get downfield fast enough for their quarterback, especially in the NFL. So those are the things you have to look at. And when you look at Jameson Williams, this guy runs past the cornerback and past the safety. I mean, he runs past the defense, and he's not running straight forward. He's juking. He does two moves along the way that slows the defenders down. He's not running by them purely based on speed. He's doing it with moves, with just football IQ, the ability, and just this. It's hard to know what makes a player able to do things like that, to be able to like take a stutter step, like they're going to shoot left and then explode back and still be going full speed, still manage to get downfield fast enough for the quarterback to find you. You just have to watch the way he runs these routes. You have to watch the defenders and the way they react to his route running, the way they get fooled. This kid is special. Okay. There's plenty of big receivers. There's plenty of fast receivers, great hands that can all have very good careers. We're looking for elite. We got the number 10 pick. If we're going to take a wide receiver, we want an elite wide receiver. That's how you win Super Bowls. We can't just get good players. Lots of teams have good players. The teams that win Super Bowls have elite players. I want elite players. I don't care if he misses the first 6 games. If he's clearly the best player, you take him. Because after the first 6 weeks are up, next year and 2 years, when some other team that has Jameson Williams on it is watching him get 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns a season and juking the hell out of defenders and helping that team win games. And you're sitting there with an 800 to 1,000-yard receiver who's pretty good. You're not going to sit there and worry about the 6 games he would have missed. That argument of he wasn't ready to play right away is not going to hold anything, right? So we got to take him. We got to say thank you. Thank you for people thinking that that an ACL injury is what it was in the 1980s. Thank you. Thank you for not knowing that it's pretty much nowadays like a freaking sprained ankle. And every player comes back to it. The guy's already jumping on it 2 months later. There's videos of him looking like he's 100% healthy already. What is he going to look like in 3 months from now? Especially because of his age. The younger you are, the faster you heal. So everybody's got to stop with this nonsense. We have a chance. If we have a chance to walk away from this draft with Thibodeau and Jameson Williams, that is what we need. That's what we've been waiting for. That's how you become elite. That's how you become a top team. And the way the AFC is right now, that's what we need. So that's where we are. We should be thanking the press and the media for if it works and these guys fall. It'd be great if at the end of it all, you find out it was just Jets people that caused all of it, just so these guys would fall. And we duped the hell out of every team in the NFL. Anyway, I'm Jeremy. I'm the chaos. Those are my thoughts. If you disagree with me, yell at me in the comment section. If you agree with me, tell me in the comment section. But most importantly, no, these are my opinions. That's all they are. One man's opinion. Have a great day. And that is the state of Jet Nation. Thank you for watching.